Well, hello. I was intending to do a turn along the promenade. I'm not sure what happened. To be honest, things are all rather vague. I'm sure it'll come back to me, but how did I get here? You know, I was on the promenade. It was a perfect morning for strolling, and I must have covered at least a quarter of a mile. I was just thinking how nice it would have been if Mary had been with me. She really loves to stroll. That's right. I passed those exact sentiments on to my companion as we walked. Oddly enough, my companion had a bit of a funny turn at exactly the same moment I mentioned Mary. Who was I strolling with? Dominique. It was Dominique, and we'd just got engaged a few days prior. Oh, what a lucky fellow I am. But something tells me it was all a bit of a sticky wicket. On Monday, Dominique had asked me to marry her. She's such a delicate one. God knows what would have happened if I should say no. I'm sure her heart would have snapped right in two if I refused. So really I had to say yes. All of a sudden, I found myself engaged, off the market, no longer a single stroller, one of Portsmouth's finest, moored up, never to sail again. So that was Monday, but that still doesn't explain how I got here. Let's see. On Tuesday, Fifi returned from her sabbatical to Bath. She had gone there for the waters, and on her return she had some colour to her face at last. Whatever treatments they had subjected her to certainly did the job. She was so pleased with how she was feeling, she treated herself to a new frock. Naturally, as a gentleman, I don't like to be indiscreet, but I must tell you her dress and the accoutrements she was exposing had a devastating effect on me. Why, I felt I could have taken on Napoleon and his grand army all by myself. Before I knew it, I found myself realising I couldn't live without Fifi and asked her to marry me. Obviously, she said yes too. Oh, what a couple of days. Wednesday was problematic. You see, I met with Angelique, ostensibly to tell her we couldn't stroll anymore, and I intended to play it straight. Angelique is quite delightful, though somewhat imposing, and as I sat opposite her in the cafe, I found myself sweating at the thought of the scene she might make. Well, as I pulled my handkerchief out of my pocket to mop my brow, the ring that I had purchased that morning for Dominique, or maybe Fifi, I hadn't quite decided yet, fell out of my pocket and onto the table. Angelique's eyes lit up when she saw it, and she was saying yes before I could retrieve the darn thing. Of course, everyone in the cafe turns and starts cheering. All I could do was smile and be British about it. Thursday was the awkward day. You see, word got back to Mother from the jewellers that I had purchased an engagement ring on her expense account. So she went and visited Mary, who Mother has always wanted me to marry. Well, when Mary said I hadn't asked yet, the thought I may have asked someone else never even crossed Mother's mind. So she went and asked Mary on my behalf. Obviously, Mary said yes. What happened on Friday? That was purely accidental. Mother told me to place a notice in the Times about my upcoming nuptials. Personally, I felt she wanted it well advertised that I, and of course access to her money, was no longer a prospect, so off I went. I did stop at the club first, and was chatting away to Rosie whilst I had a couple of G&Ts and wrote out what I wanted to say. Rosie and I have been quite close from time to time, and I've broken many promises to her, but we made small talk as I wrote. When finished, I asked her to read it over, and the next thing I know, she's hugging and kissing me. Well, I didn't know what was going on until I caught a glimpse of the notice. Somehow I'd written Rosie's name down and not Mary's by mistake. As you can imagine, on Saturday, I dared not leave the house. Who knows what would have happened? I would have probably bumped into twins. But Sunday, that was the last I remember. As I said, I was strolling with Dominique, and I'd just mentioned Mary, and we'd reached the top of the round tower. Dominique turned to me with the most serious of looks. "Do you love us?" she asked. "Of course I do," I told her. "It's true, I do love her, just as much as I loved all the women in my life." Then I realised what she said. Us. She knew. They knew. Oh, I am so weak, but I do love women. Unfortunately, it seemed they no longer love me. A voice from behind startled me. "We don't share," said Fifi, and the world spun as Dominique shoved me hard. I tripped over Fifi's outstretched foot and staggered down the stairs, hitting my head on the wall several times. Somehow, at the landing to the hot walls, I found myself still on my feet, though somewhat dazed and somewhat battered. But there was Mary. I reached out my hand for support and she grabbed it. Just as I thought I was saved, she pulled, sending me spinning towards the steep steps leading to the street below. And Rosie appeared, and I remembered admiring how well turned her ankles were, as I tripped over them and down the steps. Over and down I went, tumble, tumble, tumble. I found myself lying on my back with at least 2 limbs under me. Somehow, though, I was still breathing. Shadows played in front of my eyes, and I saw Angelique loom over me. Oh, she would save me. And a hand reached out. Something dropped from it into my open mouth, something cold and round, and I caught the sparkle of diamond as it fell. The ring lodged in my throat, blocking it, and as I fought for my last breath, I saw 5 women, arm in arm, walking away. Thank you very much.